This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good morning everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands here in South Africa. It is not often that we get to start a sunrise safari with a full moon looking absolutely stunning and really standing out in the morning sky. You can see there's a bit of cloud building up, but we are just appreciating the view this morning while we're heading out to see if we can find the lions. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari here this morning. Behind the camera is Owen, and we actually decided we would stop here with a beautiful big dead tree, and it looks like it was a knobthorn tree. But what we really appreciated was the fact that the moon is so bright this morning. As much as the clouds are starting to cover it and roll in, it really is still quite a stunning view. Interestingly enough, it is moving very quickly. So when we first stopped, it was actually quite a bit higher than those branches. I think it gives it a lot of character when you can see a bit of the dead tree in the front like that. It's around 18 degrees Celsius, so it's a nice cool morning, but we are expecting it to get really, really hot today. And there's a small chance we'll get some rain, which I can believe with those clouds coming in over that full moon. But we would love to hear from you, so if you have any questions or comments, or you'd like to let us know anything that you're looking forward to this morning, please do. You can find us at #WildEarth on Twitter. If you're under the age of 18, pop us an email on kidsquestions@wildearth.tv, or you can register on the WildEarth website, head over to the channel page, and submit your questions there. Myself, Lauren and JP are really looking forward to hearing from you this morning, so please make sure that you send those questions and comments in. You can really see how fast that moon is moving now. It actually looks like it's an extension of the tree where it is. Waikisha, I'm glad that you're appreciating the beautiful view. It is a great way to start a sunrise safari, and really not often that we get to see a full moon when we're starting our sunrise safari, so it's always a nice surprise. The way it's been moving, it looks like it's an extension of the tree on the different branches, and I'm sure very soon it's going to disappear behind the cloud bank altogether and we're going to lose it. So it's not quite 100% full at the moment, but it is very, very close. So it is still classified as a full moon. But it really is one of the clearest views we've had of it, especially in the mornings. Normally we're seeing it nicely in the evenings as it's rising over the horizon. But now that it's starting to set, going back towards the horizon, you can see all of those craters, all of the darker spots as well. Can actively see it moving towards the bottom. So my plans for the day, once we are done appreciating the moon, we're going to head off towards our northern boundary and see if we can figure out where the Talamati Pride has gone to. I have a feeling they've come further south towards Sandy Patch, but you never know, they might have turned around and gone back towards Triple M, our western boundary. But the only way we'll know is if we head out there nice and early, have a look for tracks and see what we can find. The way they were kind of split up last night, maybe we'll only find one or two, maybe we'll find none. But I'm hoping that we're going to get lucky and find all of them together so we can actually have a nice clear view of them all at the same time. I think it is going to be a really stunning day in terms of insects and birds as well. It's going to be a hot day. When it does start heating up, it's going to heat up very quickly. And with cloud cover only on the horizon, that does mean that we are going to be shade hopping a little bit later. But we are going to try and check some of the water holes as well this morning, bumble around a bit, and just see what else we can find for you. You can hear quite a few woodland kingfishers in the background, so the birds are already giving us a dawn chorus. We're actually very lucky because we're close to some drainage lines at the moment, so it's quite a popular spot for the birds, especially in the mornings. Almost looks like a flower on the edge of the tree where it's at the moment.
Christmas decoration.
A Christmas decoration. That's actually true, and it looks like a silver Christmas ball attached to the end of the tree. Or a snowball. Maybe a snowball. Definitely not often that we get to sit and appreciate the moon moving like this for so long. Oh, please, thank you so much. I'm sure we will have a wonderful sunrise bumble. And hopefully you enjoy it just as much as we do. It's such a pleasure to be out here. And the magic of not knowing what's going to happen, I think, is very underrated sometimes. It's one of the best things out here, that you never know what you're going to find, but it's always good, whether it's big or small. So I'm going to give this just a few more seconds so we can see the full moon pop out below that branch, and then I'm going to head off and start bumbling towards the boundary, keeping my eyes peeled for lion tracks. I have seen 1 or 2 hyena tracks this morning, but very close to camp, which we are quite used to. They do tend to move through very often. It really is moving through very, very quickly. So I think this is a really, really good way to start the day. I think this is our good luck charm for the day. So I'm going to use it. I'm going to go and find some lion tracks, hopefully. Cross your fingers and toes for me. And while I start heading off in that direction, let's have a look at our weather for the morning.
Good morning, everyone. Extremely active hyena day. We've got 4 adults that I can see. Lots of cubs. What a great start to the morning. I do think you are looking at a very fat and flat heart right now. But my name is Lauren. I'm not fat or flat, but it's good to see you. And I do have a cat on camera. Now, Swazi and Ndebele are at the den, but I'm going to try and get this one because I'm wondering if it's Corky. We're going to reverse. Bear with me. There's a hyena right here. I just see it and I just want to know who it is. Sometimes these sightings don't last long. I was telling my director, come quickly, come quickly. Because sometimes they just all disappear. Can you... No, this one here, dude. Just this one. Just trying to figure out who it is. What are you doing? Oh, hold on. Is it Ribbon? Ribs, is that you? It is. It's Ribbon. Okay, this is it. This is a moment, guys. She's hiding, though. She wants to see our cubbies, but she's... okay, we're going to go forward. This is it. Ribbon's at the den. Okay, this is a little bit awkward to get visuals because of just spotty bodies everywhere. Hey, my girl. How are you? Life is a bit different for you now, huh? She's too scared to go to the entrance. I'm sure you can go get your babies. Oh, she looks so sad. Call them. The babies will come to you. Call them. Heart's sleeping. Heart's not bothered at all that Ribbon's here. Ribbon's just scared, and I think it's in the belly at the entrance. I think. I just want to see what Ribbon does. This is such good news. She's fat. Sorry, Ribbon, but you are. The cub's looking for her, you see? Oh, go get your mom. Did you notice she's missing her tail? Just updating our cameraman. Oh, Ribbon's behavior has changed completely. And just to give you some context, the others are all high rankers. Heart, we believe, is second under Corky, and Swaz and In the Belly seem to be her little gang right now. So Ribbon's obviously approached the scene with the high ranking gang. Cheryl, you're saying what a wonderful way to start the drive. I know. I've been waiting on this. Hey, Ribbon. Are you okay? Okay, interactions. This is going to be good. Oh, look at her little stump. Huh? Oh, 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 oh. Yep, Ribbon's avoiding Heart. There's no real aggression here. Look at Swazi. Always next to Heart. Oh, Ribbon. She looks so sad. She just wants her babies. I know I'm anthropomorphizing right now. I know that. I'm going to just move my game track radio. See, they're all tolerating each other, and it just goes back to what I say. It is a communal den. Everybody's welcome. Just act your place. Lion girl, I didn't quite get that comment. But good morning, lion girl. You know, Ribbon looks like she used to back in 2018-19. It looks like something is not good at the hyena den. I think it's only Ribbon. I really think it's only Ribbon. The others are just there, and the belly's gone to sleep. Heart's calling out the cubs, I think. Swazi's probably there too. I wonder if I could reposition up here. What do you think? Okay, bear with me. Ribbon. This is the ribbon that I first got to know. Okay, we're just gonna push our nose into this tree. Hello, girls. Does that work at all? This den, I'm not enjoying it, guys. Can we please relocate the den, please? Back to Philemon's. That'd be wonderful. Ribbon's got fresh scratches, fresh wounds. I think she probably went to that buffalo carcass and everyone was a bit mean to her. And that's life of being a low ranker. I don't think Heart would stop her seeing her cubs. She's obviously just a little bit nervous about it. Heart's been very dominant these days. Heart's loving not having Corky around, I think, because Corky's dating, because she rules the roost. And then, of course, the minute Corky comes, she has to step down again. I'm so happy to see Ribbon. I knew she would be fine. But she is in good condition, okay? She's a bit scratched up, tailless. But she's fine, and she's full. Our babies just need to come and see her. Can smell that lovely hyena smell. I can smell you guys. Did you get that name? We both didn't quite catch that name, but I think you're asking about when will they move to a new den? Will they be safe at a new den? I'll just get that question repeated. Will they be safe at a new den? I'm not sure what that means. Will they be safe at a new den? Yes, of course. They do move dens. It's quite common. Okay, sorry, my director didn't clarify that one. I got it now. Ribbon. Would it be safe for Ribbon to move the cubs to a new den? She wouldn't, not at this stage. It benefits her to be part of the communal den. Because let's think about it, there are always babysitters. Heart's been very gentle with her cubs. Heart's tolerating them jumping on her head, them yanking in her mammary glands, and, well, just being cubs. And she's not out to hurt the cubs, but... Oh, and the belly's got up. They're safe, and they're also socializing. They're also interacting with the other cubs. It's actually very vital that they're part of the communal den. Now, Ribbon looks utterly miserable, and it's very sad to see, but this is a Ribbon I originally got to know. When I got to know Ribbon, she was at the bottom of a pile. She was bullied. Ribbon was quite a depressed, sad hyena. Maine, she obviously done something remarkable and took over the top position. And the fact that she got the respect from all the other hyenas is actually really mind-blowing. She did incredibly well, and I found Ribbon quite a gentle matriarch. I mean, I'm not a hyena, but I would like to be, and I found Ribbon quite calm. Maybe gentle is the wrong word, calm. And everyone respected her for 2 years. They respected her. It changed the clan dynamics, naturally. But everyone respected her. Everyone came to the communal den. We saw everyone at the den last year and the year before. She's just been bullied again. It's not a case of she's not welcome. She just now must understand. Corky's at the top, Heart's back at the top. She's no longer at the top, and that's it. But Ribbon comes from a low-ranking life, so she knows this life. This is not new to her. She just needs to gather some friends again. That's what she needs. And her daughter and Tima, I've not seen Tima yet. I got to see Corky yesterday, which was brilliant, but I need to figure out where Tima is. She needs her daughter. Welcome back to the hyena den. You know, Swazi and Ndebele, there is a chance. I saw a screenshot of Ndebele's nipple, the nipple part of the whole mammary gland, and it does look slightly pronounced. It doesn't look full. It doesn't look like she's entirely lactating right now, and there are no suckle marks. But it's very possible that she could be in the early stages of pregnancy. Also not, I could be speculating. But this change in Ndebele's behavior and her obsession with the cub, she's obsessed. And in Swazi, I don't know what Swazi is up to. I went into great detail yesterday about how we know 100% he's a boy, because they're just obsessed. I don't know whether it's because they know they're back in a good position with Heart, or they're high ranked again, and I don't know. Okay, I'm definitely going to sit here a little bit longer. I'm so happy we found Ribbon, but we are going to send you guys over to Tessa.
And what an exciting morning we have already. It is not even 6 a.m. here in South Africa, and we've got an active hyena den and the Talamati Pride. They're actually lying on the road in the middle of Sandy Patch Junction, so I'm really happy that they've come back onto Djuma, and they look like they're going to settle here for the day. So there you can see dark mane on the left, and one of the sub-adult males, the darker one, the larger one on the right. And I can definitely see a resemblance here. And it looks like, with the amount of time they've been spending together all the time, those two males are very close. And I think they've got quite a strong bond. That is a slightly larger sub-adult male than the other. And I think they're really starting to bond quite nicely. Makes me wonder if dark mane is going to allow the sub-adult males to stick around a little bit. So you can see there we've got the other sub-adult male and a sub-adult lioness. And then in the road, in front of us on the left, in the split, the other 3 lionesses. So all 7 are here and looking very nice and relaxed. The sun hasn't quite fully reached this area yet, but I'm sure when it does and it gets hotter, these lions are just going to move a little bit off towards the guari thickets and just relax for the day. There are some little puddles around here. I don't even want to call them pans, they're so small, but it's enough water to keep the lions going for the day. So this group is the 2 older lionesses, dark mane, 2 sub-adult males and 2 sub-adult females. Definitely time for grooming. So the entire time we've been sitting here, we have actually only seen that one lioness active, and the sub-adult male just happened to flip over onto his side just now. And that's about the most movement we've seen so far. But I don't think it'll be too long before we see them moving again. When they do get hot, they're gonna find the shade. You can see they've eaten really well. They're all looking in very good condition. And those big bellies are going to keep them relaxing for the rest of the day. I think they're going to spend the majority of their day sleeping. But while I stay here with them and see what happens, let's head over to JP to say good morning. So we are definitely still relaxing over here. It looks like it's mostly the sub-adults and dark mane that have been shifting their positions a little bit. The lionesses are looking much more relaxed. And it's probably because the males have eaten a bit more. Natural hierarchy in lions, the males are more dominant than the females, especially when it comes to a kill. And when these two sub-adult males were younger, that wouldn't have applied to them actually. They would have been classified as cubs, and they would have eaten when the lionesses ate unless they were feeling very testy and they decided to push their luck while dark mane was feeding. But it seems like as they're getting bigger, they are definitely exerting more dominance. Every time we've seen them in the last few days, they are looking much more full than the lionesses. So they're getting old enough now that they'll be pulling their weight at a carcass in terms of dominance. So it makes sense that these are the ones that are moving a bit more this morning. They're getting a little bit hotter, their body temperature is raised because they've eaten so much red meat. Bear in mind they've had 2 carcasses. And so when they get hot, they'll be the first ones to move. We're going to spend quite a bit of time with them this morning and just see what happens as the morning goes on. So there are quite a few beautiful birds calling, birdiful birds, yes, definitely, at the moment. Still got a very loud dawn chorus going, and it seems like the lions are not fazed by this at all. None of the alarm calls have been happening that you would expect when there's lions lying in the road. But I think they've been still and so relaxed for so long that the birds are not bothered by them. You can see a flock of red-billed quailias coming up the background. But we do have some movement from one of the lionesses. She might walk over. Oh, bathroom break. She might walk over to the rest of the lions just now. She's actually still got so much blood on her face from feeding. She's got a red tinge to her when she stepped into the sun. You can just see the stripe there behind her mouth line. She's definitely had a very good time feeding, and they haven't quite gotten around yet to grooming properly. Even her paws are looking dirty. And that's normally quite an important step for the lions, grooming each other after feeding. I can hear an impala alarm calling. I think it noticed her when she was up while it was just moving through the clearing. Somewhere far in the distance though, I actually can't really see it. The life of a lioness. They really do look very relaxed lying in the road.
Good morning and welcome to Eco Training Pridelands. At the moment, we positioned ourselves in the bush on a little outcrop, and we're listening to all the different sounds of nature in the background and enjoying that early morning sunrise that's popping out behind the clouds. One of the things that we have noticed in the last few weeks is how the dawn chorus is actually becoming more and more quiet, as the breeding season is now coming to an end. Although there's still a number of different birds that are entertaining us with their beautiful calls. So my name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got Davi. So our plan for this morning is to go and see if we can potentially follow up on the wild dogs and find some elephant and giraffe. And meanwhile, we're just going to listen to the different calls in the background. Some of those are for some of the scrub robins, as well as a number of different dove species that are calling. And it's mostly emerald spotted wood dove, and every now and then you'll also hear Birchall's cuckoo that will be calling in the background. Good morning, Bia, and welcome to the show. Yes, it's absolutely a stunning sunrise, and we can't wait to get going and see what we can go and find. We're going to move on and go and see what we can find. There's some guinea fowls that are alarm calling in the distance, and I would like to go and see what they're up to. But in the meanwhile, let's go and see what Lauren is doing.
So much action has been happening here. So some of you will remember a sighting in 2020. It's happening all again. That's Swaz. He's with the 3 cubs, just having the time of his life. It's hilarious. Kai Cow appeared, which was interesting. He's one of the immigrant males. He appeared, had a sniff around. And the cubs are empty. They want to come to the adults. They want to come to their mom, but they've not really been much further past a Dane. Look at Swazi. Now that's Ndebele joining the scene. Swazi loves the cubs so much. Oh, look at this little one. He wants to come and see mom. Go. Go to your mummy. Which one's your mummy though? Is it Ribbon or is it Heart? And just to give you some context, here in front of me, the positioning of the vehicle is really not ideal, but Ribbon and Heart are sleeping, what, 2.5 meters apart from one another? And they're not. Heart's tolerating her. It's all settled now. But Ribbon's just been super, super cautious. I mean, she lost her tail. She got beaten up. So many of you ask, oh, Ribbon won't come here when Heart's here. They're absolutely fine. Heart hasn't, since I've been here, Heart hasn't batted an eyelid at her. No aggression whatsoever. And the belly's got an injury to her back right leg. That's whose track that is. I've been wondering. We'll show you in a moment. Okay, go to Mummy. I just don't know which one's your mom. It's very difficult. That's not Mom. That's in the belly. Not Mum. No, too scared. Just a little bit too much. The cubs are all remarkably similar. I really will struggle to identify who is who at this stage. Can we just take a look at Indabelle's back right paw? I've been seeing her bite that on every single day we've had her, just down here. You can see there's an injury to one of the toe pads, and I've noticed that in the tracks of the hyena tracks that I look at. I've noticed that one of their pads is raised. Do you see that? I don't know if it's swollen or broken on some level, but I notice her bite it every day, and I'm always thinking, why is she always biting her right foot? And now I can see there's an injury, and now I know it's her tracks. Okay, Ribbon's standing up. She looks so funny without a tail. Ribbon, please go and get your babies. Oh, look. Okay. See, she had a sniff of Heart. It's settled on some level. Oh my God, Ribbon looks the size of a house. I think she's just gonna wait. Maybe she's been with the cubs already. We don't know. A lot probably happened since we've not been here. And she's probably just gonna sleep in the shade. Indabelle and Swazi were part of the gang that did gang up on her. But they're not out for blood, and that's what I keep saying. They're not trying to hurt her now. They just had to put her back in her place. Quite literally had to let Ribbon know, your time as matriarch is over, girlfriend. Get to the bottom of the pile where you belong. And that's how it was. Not nice, I know, but that's what it was about. And there's a scientific paper by Dr. Holkamp, who's sort of the main hyena lady, the Misi woman from the Masai Mara, and she conducts a lot of the studies from the University of Michigan. And the study states that in order for matriarchal takeovers, they need to have a girl army, just like Waffles did with the North Clan. And of course, Heart and Corky are quite a force to be reckoned with. And they obviously got other high rankers on board. Indabelle is very much with them. And I guess, well, Swaz comes with part of the package. This is why you want to be at a communal den, everyone. Ribbon's gone. But her two cubs, look, they're having the time of their life with Uncle Swazi. Literally. She wouldn't remove them from that. Not at all. There's no need to. Safety in numbers. Very soon the cubs are going to start venturing past. There seems to be like a line where the vegetation ends. They don't go past it. Anna Marie, Swazi is many people's favorite. Darby loves Swazi. He's very entertaining. He's just... I don't know what it is about Swaz. He's just still a goofball. I mean, he's sexually mature now. And he technically could have dispersed a while ago. But he doesn't want to. But he's always been in a good position in his clan. Everybody tolerates him. Indabelli's his sister. Corky's his mom's best friend. Ribbon even enjoyed spending time with him. Everybody tolerates him. And remember, he's a NATO male, not an immigrant male. A NATO male of high rank, which is why he just always fits in so well. I wonder where Kaika went. He came, he had a sniff of everybody, and then he left. But it's interesting, Michael, you also mentioned this to me, but we don't seem to be seeing that many immigrant males. I mean, we see Comet seems to be very dominant right now. We see Kaikau. That's really the main two that we've been seeing. Where are all the immigrant males? We've got Swazi's a NATO male. We believe Koza's no longer with us. We believe Saka's no longer with us. I saw Luca the last time I was here. Also worried about what's happened to Fika. I've not seen him in a very long time. I know, Michael, you're also wondering about that. And then Fogo? Is that it? Okay, we definitely are going to sit here a little bit longer. This is just too wonderful.
Back to Eco Training Pridelands. At the moment we're at Leopard Dam and we're listening to a number of different bird calls and just enjoying the environment around us. We're just going to do a short little silence segment and allow you to enjoy those sounds too, while our cameraman Darby is going to pan around and share the area with you.
So we've had a little bit of movement here with the Talamati Pride. It seems that everybody has started moving into the shade. So they're actually all closer together now. And this lioness that you can see is actually the old lioness that's lost the tip of her tail. So she's one of the older two that are in the pride. But you can see everybody is now nice and close together and relaxing in the shade. You've got the 3 males further back, dark mane back left, and the 2 sub-adults. And then the 4 closest to us are the 4 lionesses, 2 older and 2 sub-adults. If you listen carefully, you might hear the sneezing sound in the background of the impala's alarm calling. Every now and then they're alarm calling. So they like to sleep in this open area overnight, but I don't think that would have been possible last night thanks to the lions being in the open on the road. And they look like they've been moving back through, and now they're noticing the lions because they've been getting up and moving. When they're actually flat, even though they're in the road, if animals are coming from the fringe, there where you can see the quarries and then grass just in front, if animals are coming from the fringe, I don't think they'd very easily spot the lions, because when they're lying flat, the grass is so long at the moment that you wouldn't be able to see them unless they're moving. And it happened as the 3 lionesses kind of got up and started moving over. That's when the impalas really started alarm calling properly. So that movement definitely caught their eyes. So everybody is very relaxed. They've got a little bit of extra sleepy lion mode activated today thanks to all of the meat they've been eating. And we've been trying to figure out what exactly was happening with the carcasses and the hyena tracks and everything that was going on. So it's all speculation because none of us actually saw it. But it is an interesting conversation to have that they killed a buffalo and then another calf. It's quite interesting because normally they'd be happy with one. But being opportunistic, if a buffalo walked through, they might even give it a go now. Even though they've eaten quite a lot, they are opportunistic. They don't know when the next meal will come. So I think the next few months in particular for those 2 sub-adult males is going to be quite interesting. Again, speculation, but based on what we know about lions, we're not sure if the 2 sub-adults you can see closest to dark mane, if they're going to stick around with pride for a while longer, or if they're actually going to start moving off, because the sub-adults range between just under 3 and just over 3 years old. They were born between December and April of 2018 to 2019, so they're just over 3 years old, that kind of bracket. And so this is really the time where they would normally start becoming more independent. But with Dark Mane being on his own, as much as he is still in a coalition with the Evokers, Blondie and Mohawk, they're not actually together. They're in separate prides, and as much as their boundaries kind of touch on each other and overlap, we don't know whether or not the young males are going to stick around with Dark Mane or whether they're going to be forced to move now that they are getting so big. I've actually got a European roller that's just landed above the lionesses, and it's looking very skeptically down at the ground. Have a look at that. It came straight over and landed, and now it's kind of, one of the lionesses moved and it got a bit of a fright. She had a fly on her face and she kind of just swatted her face a little bit, and the roller actually got too much of a fright and left. And it's interesting because the lions are absolutely no threat to that lilac-breasted roller, but instinct will still tell that roller that these are predators and you've still got to watch yourself around them. But they don't necessarily roar more during the full moon. It will affect predator movements for sure, but it doesn't mean that they'll be more or less vocal. Usually, I would say wild dogs are much more active during the full moon, because they can use it to hunt. They're normally crepuscular, which means they'll hunt morning and evening, and that's when they'll move. But during the full moon, because there's more than enough light, they'll hunt overnight, and so they'll be more vocal. Lions, when they're moving, prefer when it's not the full moon. So preferably when there's pretty much no moon, that's when the lions will take the most advantage, because then they've got the advantage of extra darkness, and so they can hunt more easily, and then you might find them being more vocal. But it doesn't mean that they will or won't roar, more or less, because that is just affected by the lion movements around the area and how much they're actually moving at the time. So we didn't hear anything last night, although that being said, I think all of us were very tired, so I don't know if we would have heard anything if there were lions roaring last night. But with how full they are and how little they've actually moved from where we started at the dam, it's just probably just under a kilometer away from here. I wouldn't even think that far. So they haven't moved far at all, so I don't think they've had much energy, and I think that's really what's determining it at the moment. They've eaten so much, and they're just wanting to relax quietly without being too obvious about where they are. And so for that reason, they probably wouldn't have been very vocal last night. Remember that being vocal is a sign of occupying the territory. It's part of males advertising that a territory is taken. And if they're relaxing, if they've had a lot to eat and they're wanting to relax and not move too far, if they are vocal, it advertises to other lions, other males and prides, that the lions are here. So any other lion will be able to pinpoint their location, but so will things like hyenas. And sometimes they actually just don't want that. They don't want to encourage other lions to come forward. And somebody like the S8 male, the Mbali male, if he hears dark mane roaring on his own, that's definitely enticement for him to come forward and see if he can find him. But it is interesting because with the pride having split and 3 lionesses being with the Mbali male, it'll be interesting to see what happens as time goes on. Now the dark mane is getting older, but with the 2 sub-adult males, you never know. We're going to stay here. I think the lions aren't going to move that much, but we'll keep you updated. Let's head over to JP on Bushwalk.
Welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. At the moment we are looking at a small foam-like structure which is probably some 2 centimeters in length. And this is often referred to as cuckoo spit. Why on earth it's been called cuckoo spit, I have absolutely no idea. This little creature that is responsible for making this is a tiny little bug, and as bugs have got sucking mouth parts, they'll stab that little mouth part into the plant and then start sucking the juices out of the plant. The excess fluids that they then release is covering them to prevent them from dehydrating, and also will eventually end up dropping down towards the ground. It's not the only species of spittlebug or froghopper that we have in this area. Some of the species are quite large, and they also often associate with plant species such as African weeping wattle and the trees such as the apple leaf, which is also alternatively known as a rain tree. In the case of the larger trees, they often will create such a large amount of the spittle that drops down to the ground, but it actually provides some nutrients back into the system when it's reabsorbed through the root system of those plants. This is something else that has just caught my attention as well. And then if we look a little bit closer, right over here, we've also got some sugar ants. And these ants are quite often responsible for farming aphids. And what they do is that they will provide the aphids with protection against other potential predators. And in return, these little aphids will provide them with a number of droplets of sugary substance, which provides them with nutrition. we're going to move on and go and see what else we can go and find. Let's go and see what Lauren and the hyenas are up to.
It's all still just so wonderful at the Dane. Not much has really changed this time around, though. Belly's fast asleep. She's almost snoring next to the car. Heart's fast asleep. Oh no, see when they do that stretchy roly-poly thing, it makes me laugh. But there you go, that's Heart. And Swazi's still entertaining all the cubs. And that's why a sort of prolonged Dane sighting is really beneficial. Just to sit, it will end soon because the sun's going to get hot. And they're all going to move. I can promise you they're not going to stay in the sun. And it just means that we saw Kaikau, we saw Heart, Ribbon, Belly, Swaz. And obviously all the cubs are all still accounted for and well. Sometimes you just need to give it a bit of time to watch interactions. But Ribbon, I can 100% confirm that she's at the bottom. I mean, we knew that, but that, I've not seen Ribbon behave like that since 2019. Early 2019. They're such complex beings. Ugh. There's probably so much we don't understand. Okay, so we're just going to sit here a little bit longer and see if anyone else appears at the hyena den. We're just sitting watching all the antics at the hyena den. It has been such a good morning. The sun's getting higher. I can feel that it's going to be a really, really hot day. And the birds are just chirping away like there's no tomorrow. We are just going to sit here for a moment, watch the hyenas and listen to the sounds of the bush. Aren't the sounds just incredible? This is really my favourite time of morning, and added bonus that I'm surrounded by hyenas. Look at those cubs, always up to no good.
So we have got a little bit of action here. We've got two hyenas that have come in and they're sniffing the air as they're moving. They've done a bit of a loop around the lines, but it almost seems like they can't see the lions. They haven't pinpointed where the lions are, but they can smell them. And they've come from the direction of the dam where the carcass was. And they're moving around the clearing with their noses in the air, looking for the lions. So they are moving behind us fairly quickly. But I'm not sure which two hyenas these are. With the sun the way it is, we can't really see them with how fast they're moving. I haven't had a chance to have a look at any of the markings on the sides, but if any of you recognize one, please do let me know. Although we only really had a view of the one. But the lions are completely unperturbed. You can see they're still lying flat. They've mostly moved to one little patch of shade. And they didn't even lift their heads when the hyenas came past, which is part of the reason, I'm sure, why the hyenas did not see them. So it's only the one sub-adult male that's still in the sun. The rest of them are relaxed in the shade. And I'm just watching behind us. It seems like the hyenas have actually disappeared down towards Impala Road. So maybe they came, did a little bit of a loop, smelled the lions, but smelled there was no food. And they're carrying on. Because hyenas are more than intelligent enough, and their senses are so good that if they wanted to pinpoint these lions, they could have followed their noses a little bit more and found them. But the fact that they did a bit of a loop and then just disappeared, even though their noses were in the air, tells me they were gathering information. They've decided there's nothing worthwhile here, and they've left. But you never know, maybe they'll come back, maybe they're going to find a shady spot. Try and follow the lions. Luckily, both hyenas did look like they had fed quite nicely, very similar to the lions, nice rounded bellies. And so for them, they might just be heading back towards the den site, or the rest of the clan. So we did see Dark Mane walk over towards us. He's looking in good condition, considering. He was walking quite well, actually. He didn't really have much of a limp on that front right, which is great to see. And having eaten, his body is looking a lot more full. He's not looking as muscular as the sub-adult males, but that is also expected. They're busy growing. They've got a lot of testosterone going through the body at the moment, where he's hit his peak, and now his peak is starting to drop a little bit. And the sub-adults are just kind of getting ready to start their growth spurts. You can see that sub-adult male at the back, his body is quite wide. He's very muscular. Diane, I think they've chosen to sleep on the road this morning because the grass is actually quite wet. There's a lot of dew. We had a fairly cold and crisp night last night for our summer. So when there's a very clear sky, what happens is we get a lot colder at night, and so there's a lot more dew that forms on the grass. So at the moment we can actually still see the dew on the grass in the sun. And so I'm sure the lions are actually just trying to stay dry by staying on the road. But remember, at the same time, there's going to be a lot less parasites too. Ticks are in the grass, and I mean, I know how much I don't necessarily appreciate ticks at the moment. You know, you walk through the grass for 5 minutes and you're covered in ticks. And so for them, if they're going to be sleeping especially, that's a great opportunity for parasites and pests to climb onto them from the grass specifically. There's a lot less chance of that happening on the road because the ticks won't move as much over such an open area where it's sandy. So Dark Mane at the moment is lying half on the grass, and so he'll have more chance of getting parasites at the moment than the rest of the pride will. So it's a combination of the path of least resistance, and also they don't really want to get too wet this early in the morning. You probably find they'll wait a little bit longer for a bit more of the dew to burn off, and then they'll start following the shade underneath the guarri trees. You can actually hear a woodpecker in the background. We're gonna stick around here for a little bit longer while they're sleeping. Hopefully we'll get them moving for you just now, and we'll head over to JP on bushwalk so long.
Welcome back to Pridelands. We've got a little bit more action than sleeping lions right over here. We've actually got a number of flies as well as ants that's making their way into this bird dropping. And what we did notice is that one of the ants earlier had a tiny little food particle. This is often known as a robber fly. And we also see that they will quite often deliberately position them strategically next to ant trails and wait for an ant with a food particle and then rob it from the food particle. Some of the other things that we've also noticed right over here is tiny little tracks that looks like a little tram line. And this has been created by a millipede that's walked over here. And then right over here, we've got the tracks of a spotted hyena. The reason why I know it's a spotted hyena is because there's quite a there's not as such marked difference between that track of the hind foot and the front foot as what we would find with the brown hyena, which I've also never seen in this area. And quite often brown hyenas have got a large amount of hair in between the toes as well. It might be acting as insulation or possibly for silent walking. So when we do look at hyena tracks, we'll always notice that the hind part of the pad is quite slanted. If we also look at the toes, they're typically very kidney shaped, and we always will find that there's a nail that is present. Yesterday we were discussing African wild dog tracks, and we said when it comes to jackal tracks as well as dog tracks, you can actually put a grass stalk between the pad and the toes without cutting through either the pad or the toe. Here you can see with a spotted hyena, it's not the fact. We can often confuse these tracks with cat tracks as well. However, we will only notice 3 lobes at the back of a cat track and not 2 lobes as in the case with the spotted hyena. We also, when looking at female lioness or the lioness tracks, we'll also see that the lioness track sometimes also has a slanted axis. However, we do find that there's no nails present and that the toes of the lioness is much more oval in comparison to that of the kidney-shaped toes of a spotted hyena. I see our flies are still back and they're still trying to steal from our ants. Good morning, Wakisha, and welcome to the show. It depends on the species of hyena, and there's a few articles that I read in the past in terms of smell and how far they can smell. When it comes to brown hyena, they reckon that they can smell carrion up to 14 kilometers downwind compared to spotted hyena, which probably can smell approximately at 4 kilometers on the downwind. But for brown hyena, it's very important to actually be able to locate carrion, which forms a large part of their diet. They are also quite often responsible for killing, and they often take seal cubs and a number of small animals which is easy to catch, unlike the spotted hyena, which is actually a very good hunter. However, it's often thought of that they actually will scavenge. They do scavenge. They're also very good with stealing from lions. However, they reckon that up to 75% of the food that hyena eats is actually killed by itself. In some areas, we also find that lions are more successful with making hunts, and large groups of hyenas are more effective with stealing from them. And in other areas, the opposite is true, where we find that the lions are the ones that are often making the hyenas are the ones that are often making the kills, and the lions stealing from them.
We're just sitting with the hyenas right now. They're very curious of the car. The car must have some wonderful smells, I'm sure. Also some terrible smells, I'm sure. I'm just biting his sister's leg. I think she likes her leg. The smell is a bit interesting here, but this is brother and sister. And they are just the funniest duo. They're becoming characters in their own right. Did you lose balance there, boy? That's because your tummy's so round. When you eat that much, that's what happens. You're starting to wake up a bit now. Back to the cubs they go. Indabelle and Svaz have just been absolutely hilarious. Everybody's awake again. And everybody's so full. Ribbon, Heart, Swaz, and Indabelle. It has to be the buffalo, I'm more than sure of it. Swaz is really brown nosing Heart. That's what they call it in hyena world. And it's literally called that. He follows her everywhere. Heart stands up, he stands up. Heart sits down, he sits down. He's trying very hard to impress her. Poor Heart, to be honest. She really is just trying to have some cub time, and Swaz is just not really respecting her personal space. Really not respecting her personal space. And what you'll find hyenas doing when they're trying to impress another hyena, especially lower rankers trying to impress a high ranker, they'll do a lot of pretending. So they'll sniff whatever that hyena is sniffing and go, ooh, ooh, I like that smell too. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I like that too. You're stretching. Oh, I'm going to stretch too. Yeah, I'm just like you. And lots of tail wagging, just like a dog. Because they're trying to impress and getting the good books of the highest ranker or a female. We will bumble shortly, but this has just been too active and too entertaining to have ever driven away. All sorts of excitement and activity, but I believe Tessa's lions are also getting active.
So we've got a little bit of activity. One of the sub-adult lionesses is sitting with her head up at the moment. She did a little bit of a reposition. She got up and stretched, turned to face the other way, and now she's lying with her head up. And she's listening. Oh, there's the sub-adult male with his head up too. She's listening because the impalas started alarm calling again when she got up, which is why her head is still up currently. Oh, there goes my mic pack. And flat. So I still don't think any other animal out here flops down as aggressively as a lion does. It's just it's a typical lion thing. I've never seen other animals do it quite like a lion does. It's as though you've got to throw your body down to the ground when you're resting. You can't just lie down gently. And I'm quite impressed that you can see them you can see it's quite a clear sky, so there's not that much cloud to cover the sun. And that sub-adult male is sticking through that heat. He hasn't moved over yet, but I'm sure when he does, there's not that much shade left. I think he's almost going to have to lie on top of the other lions to find a patch. Dark mane has been moving around a little bit every time one of the other lions shifts. He kind of picks up his head a bit and then puts it back down. At the moment, he's just lying with his head almost tilted onto the top so that you can see the underside of his chin. He's actually opened his mouth a little bit there, maybe trying to cool off. So it is quite impressive how fast the lion's digestive systems work. I must be honest, because I was expecting them to look a lot rounder this morning. Jen, yes, there is definitely evidence of lionesses leaving their pride. In fact, the Talemati pride has split. So there used to be 5 older lionesses within the pride. Now there's only 2. The other 3 have actually split away from this part of the pride, and they are with the Mbali male. In fact, they've had cubs with him, if I'm not mistaken. So they have split from this part of the pride. That being said, I think if they were in the same area as the pride and they happened to rejoin, I think there would probably be more friendly than hostile interaction because they have grown up together and they still have that bond. But there definitely is evidence of lionesses leaving prides. It doesn't happen that often because normally the lionesses would all stay together and it would be the sub-adult males that would move off. But it certainly does happen, and it usually happens when the pride is getting a little bit too big. You might find it splits into smaller sections, and that's because when there's too many mouths to feed, one buffalo won't be enough if you've got a pride of 18, 20, 25 lions, which has happened. The Birmingham pride is a very good example. They got way too big and they had to split. Because when you've got that many mouths to feed, you've used so much energy to hunt, but there's not enough energy coming in for each individual lion for it to be worthwhile anymore. And so then what you'll find is specific lionesses will split. They might take their youngsters with them. Or if they're sub-adults already, the sub-adults will decide for themselves whether they're staying with the pride or leaving with their mother. So it definitely can happen. In my experience, the sub-adults, when they are old enough, will actually stay together. Even if the lionesses split, the sub-adults tend to stick together quite often. He's still got a very big belly, actually. I think of all of them, that sub-adult male, the slightly darker one as well, and dark mane have the biggest stomachs. But if you consider how much they have eaten in the last 4 days, you would think their stomachs would be a lot rounder. So it just shows you how efficient the digestive system can be. It takes a lot of energy to digest protein. Red meat is almost all protein. And so it takes a lot of energy to work the digestive system. So it shows you how efficient they are. They are the biggest of the predators that we get out here. And that's actually why they've adapted to a strategy of having a pride, because on their own, lions are so big that they're slower. It's a trade-off between being really big and strong and being fast, which is why leopards and then cheetahs are faster and faster still, because they're smaller and lighter. So that's their trade-off. So they can afford to live on their own because they're fast enough to catch anything. Where the lions are so big, they're a lot slower. So they have to rely on the element of surprise, and they have to catch larger prey to feed everybody. But it also means their digestive system has to be very efficient to get through all of that red meat. It's also why you'd find that herbivores are constantly feeding, where lions, leopards, hyenas, wild dogs, cheetahs, they could feed once every few days if they needed to, because it's a lot higher in content, nutritional content. Everything that they're eating in the digestive system is more refined. So they can process every bit of it just about, where something big like an elephant is constantly feeding because 60% of what it eats might be digested. The rest, definitely not. Dark mane is looking so relaxed. And Paul, I'm so glad these are your favorites, and it is nice to see them sleeping so peacefully. It's very typical lion life going on at the moment, sleeping for 20 of the 24 hours in a day. And I think at the moment they're actually sleeping more than 20 hours because they are so full. If you consider that they really did not move from the same spot for 3 days almost. This is the furthest they've moved. So the rest of the time they've been feeding, drinking, and sleeping. Because there is quite a large cloud bank over the sun currently, I think it is going to be a while before that sub-adult male moves. If it clears and the sun happens to pop out over the top of the clouds, then we'll feel it warming up very quickly. And then we might find he'll come over to the rest of the pride. But for now, they're looking so relaxed, I don't think they need to go anywhere. And because there have been impalas alarm calling and the occasional bird alarm calling, not many other animals will come here other than those hyenas. They're attracted by the alarm calls. And even they did a bit of a loop and then left the area at speed. So I think the lions are going to have a fairly undisturbed day. I think the only thing that might actually persuade them to move at this point might be maybe a herd of elephants or a big elephant bull. And we actually did see tracks of a big elephant bull while we were driving up to the lions. So I've been following tracks of an elephant bull. So possibly in that instance you might find the elephant wouldn't tolerate them and they'd move. But for now it does seem like they are very, very sleepy. So what I might actually do is take a bit of a bumble and see what else we can find. And we can always come back and check on them a little bit later or this afternoon. I don't think they're going to move far.
Welcome back to Eco Trading Pridelands. We're still spending a little bit more time this morning at Leopard Dam, looking at some birds, some interesting tracks and other field signs. There's also a number of interesting insect signs that we did manage to find. And meanwhile, we're just going to do a short silence segment and allow you to listen to the different sounds of nature in the background.
So as we were leaving the Talamati sleeping so peacefully, we actually noticed this hooded vulture. And it seems to be, it's fairly close to the lions, it's about 50 meters from them. And I think it's just following them around a little bit, waiting for some fresh scat or any signs of a carcass. And this is one of the indicator species. When we're looking for a carcass, the hooded vulture is normally the first to arrive. They've got very good eyesight and they tend to follow the predators around, waiting for the next set of scraps. And this is the only vulture species we know of that will actually eat fresh lion scat as well. It's still very high in protein. As much as it's moved through the lion, it's still very high nutritional content for them, and so the vultures will actually eat the lion scat, the lion poo. Sounds a bit strange, but they will do it. Actually sounds even stranger, but some tortoises will do that as well. Very odd. But we are living in the wild, so you got to do what you've got to do, I suppose. You've got to get your protein in. So it is looking very nice and relaxed. It's not as though it's flying over the lions and circling. It's actually just perching itself up on the dead branches and waiting for any signs of movement. It's having a bit of a preening session at the moment. Because this is a slightly smaller species than the other species of vulture that we get here, it is also a little bit lighter, which means it's a little more swift in its movements, so it can fly and maneuver a bit easier, and its wingspan is smaller, so it also tends to get a little bit closer, and you'll often find them walking in amongst the lion pride when the lion pride is sleeping, when they're close to a carcass. And that's because they don't have to be as nervous as something like a white-backed vulture, which has a very large wingspan. This has a smaller wingspan and it's lighter, and so it doesn't have to be as nervous. This wingspan is only about 1.8 meters, which is very big, as is. It's longer than me, taller than me, I'd say. But what that means is when you are walking through the pride of lions, if one of them turns quickly, you don't need as much space to take off. So the hooded vultures tend to be a lot more relaxed, actually in amongst the predators, than the other vulture species. Oh, that light is beautiful now. You can actually see a bit of the pink on the face. So it's actually not unusual for us to see one hooded vulture on its own. Because they're smaller, they tend to move on their own. And because they normally arrive first, they're much more inconspicuous. So you'll often just find them following predators around, sitting like this on branches, waiting for the next bit of action to happen. I think I'm going to leave the hooded vulture. I'm going to carry on down. I want to go and check Treehouse Dam, see if there's any action happening there. And while I bumble off in that direction, we'll head over to Lauren, who's at Chitwa.
The hyena dane's not too far away from Chitwa, and it's always worth just popping in, getting the updates from the east. And to be honest with you, look at this place. Look at it.
So I'm now bumbling down Impala Road from Sandy Patch. I'm going south at the moment, and I'm wanting to do my usual zigzag back towards Treehouse Dam so that I can cover a bit of distance. We did have leopard tracks in the area yesterday, so it's always worth just checking. But also we're very close to Triple M, which is the western boundary. So if anything crossed there, it's not a very big block from this road to the boundary for animals to cross. So more likely than not, they would have crossed this road as well. This is also the direction that hyenas disappeared down. So a good place to check. I've always found Impala Road quite productive, especially as you get more towards Impala Plains because of the change of vegetation. You're going from open areas to guari thickets to seepline, where you've got a lot more bush willows and silver cluster leaves, and then back to open areas, and then the drainage line and the dam. So it's really productive because there are so many different vegetation types that you've got a pretty good chance of seeing anything right the way through, from insects and spiders up to elephants and everything in between. And this has been my most productive road, specifically with wild dogs. So I always get a bit of a lucky feeling when I'm on this road for wild dogs. But while I carry on with my bumble, let's head over to JP on bushwalk.
Welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. We're still at Leopard Dam, and patience has just paid off in our favor. And that's one of the things that I've learned about nature as a guide. The more you sit still, the more you actually can observe. And if you sit still, things quite often just start happening around you. And very quickly we were visited by 3 elephant bulls that just made their way in. 2 of those are still drinking, while the one has gone to the opposite side of the dam. And it seems as if he is actually going to go and look for some soft mud that he can maybe coat his body in. Let's see what they get up to. To give you an idea, that elephant on average needs some 120 liters of water a day, and where there's sufficient groundwater, they will actually go and drink twice. I do, however, find it incredibly fascinating that in some arid environments and desert environments where we do find elephants, they'll sometimes move 70 to 80 kilometers between water and the areas where they feed. In that case, some of those elephants can go for 4 or 5 days without water. Having good knowledge of the animal's needs for specific food types as well as water dependency also enables you as a guide very effectively to determine when they're going to come and drink and how often they're going to go and drink. And if you have got guests that specifically wants to target specific species such as rhino or elephant, that definitely makes it easier for you to locate those animals. We also find that some species are totally water dependent and needs to drink daily and won't move very far away from water. We also find those species which are water independent, and there's a variation between that too. And some species will be mobile and they will be able to go for maybe a day or so without water, and quite often find sufficient amount of water in their food. And then those species which can go for several days without water and don't need to be close by to a water body at all. And one of those are steenbok as well as duiker that get sufficient amount of moisture out of the food that they feed. But one of the things that I've actually noticed at this dam specifically is with both duiker and steenbok that they would often move big distances. And a few months ago, in the peak of the winter months, we were tracking a steenbok on quite a regular interval, and this little steenbok used to make journeys of approximately 1.6 kilometers to and from this water body. Good morning, Lebo, and welcome to the show. When it comes to elephants, we've actually got a wide range of different social organizations, and some individuals, they will just tend to stick to themselves for the rest of their life. We often find that with very old bulls that they tend to wander off on their own. We often find that these bulls are quite often older than 45 or so. We also sometimes find that these males that's older might also sometimes be accompanied by a number of younger bulls. And these old bulls quite often tend to learn them a number of valuable skills. Very similar to a breeding herd, where the females will actually be responsible for teaching their young daughters and young that's in the group a number of different skills which they need. However, when it does come to the breeding herd, the males normally get kicked out here by 12 or 15 years of age. We sometimes also find young males that are walking on their own, but quite often you will see a number of similar aged young males all sticking together within a bachelor group. Well, we're going to watch our elephants a little bit longer and see what they get up to. And let's go and see what the rest of the team is up to.
So I am slowly bumbling towards Impala Plains, one of my favorite open clearings on the whole property, and my lucky space for wild dogs. So we will see what we get lucky with this morning. There is still quite a lot of dew on the grass, so the animals are not as plentiful yet as you would have thought, especially the smaller ones. You can imagine if you're running through the grass and it's very wet, you're going to get absolutely soaked if you're something small like a mongoose, even a squirrel, or a lot of the ground birds, francolins, swordflowers. But I am hoping that now that the sun has cleared the level of the clouds, it's warming up nicely and there might be a lot more things like butterflies coming out. So that is actually what I'm looking for along here, is any interesting insects while we are on the search for some of the mammals. It's actually quite tough, but while we're driving I am also listening for any interesting bird calls. So there's actually a few sections where it's slightly more open along this road on the way down towards Impala Plains, and this tends to be normally where you would find a lot more life in general, because it's a lot safer for animals to be in the open areas, and there's enough little bits of shade all over that as it gets hotter they've got some shelter. And normally there's quite a few impalas here, but I'm thinking because the lions are close by and the hyenas came jetting down this road, that maybe some of the animals are still hiding, not quite sure what's happening with all the predators around. Approaching a seep line now, so you never know, maybe we'll get lucky. But it is actually quite a perfect morning temperature wise to be out on a morning bumble. So on my way towards Treehouse Dam, we've actually been having a look at some of the different flowers and plants. And we're actually looking for a few specific ones that we've been chatting about the last few days, but we haven't been lucky enough to find them yet. I'll certainly let you know as soon as we do. There are the tracks of those two hyenas still on the road, still going straight down, so they knew where they were going when they left the lines and they just jetted off in the opposite direction, again heading towards Treehouse Dam. So I definitely think there's some form of densite around there somewhere. We just haven't managed to pinpoint exactly where yet. I was expecting there to be a few more flowers in this stretch, and actually this month while I'm here I was expecting a lot more flowers by now already, because there has been quite a lot of decent rain. Normally you find flowers almost everywhere, but there's a lot of different grass species, and that can affect which flower species grow. So in certain areas we're finding more flowers than others, and I definitely want to brush up on a lot more of my flower species. Does mean in those areas more insects. Lena, I would say my favorite edible plants, definitely marula fruits. Those are very nice and sweet, but also things like sour plums and jacket plums. They're quite unusual to eat, and one of the most fun things to experience with guests is actually eating different plants. Even something like, it sounds really strange, but something like a mapani tree, you can actually eat the leaves, and because of the high tannin content it dries your mouth out really quickly, so it's just a very strange feeling, and it's a lot of fun to experience with other people because you're not expecting it. It looks so succulent and soft, and you put it in your mouth and it just completely dries your mouth out. So it's one of those interesting situations, but probably marula fruit is my favorite just in terms of actually eating it myself. And the most unexpected ones would be the mapanis, and then also a sour plum, because when you first put a sour plum into your mouth, it's actually got a bit of a sweet flavor to it, and as you start kind of processing it a bit in your mouth, it just gets more and more and more sour to the point where you actually make a bit of a weird face. So it's quite entertaining to watch people eat that, I must say. But there's so many different ones. I often find myself chewing on stalks of grass as well. It's nice and sweet at the bottom. Oh, num-nums. Oh, Owen likes num-nums. Oh, I love the flower of a num-num. It's a beautiful white flower. But num-num, it's all in the name. Very yummy. There are a lot of really good termite mounds in this area. Gail, actually we've been quite surprised by the lack of insects this season. Normally anywhere from December, when it starts heating up a lot and we start getting some rain, the insect life is just out of this world. You'll see everything that you can think of, and especially when you're driving, there's obviously a lot of insects coming towards you all the time, and at night as well, because they can be attracted to the lights of the vehicle. But there have been oddly very few species of insects that we've seen around. Quite a few butterfly species, dragonflies, the usual ants, matabele ants and those kinds of things, and termites. But in terms of the abundance we normally get, no. Not even cicadas have been very active this season. So maybe they're waiting for February. We have had slightly different rain cycles this year. It hasn't been as hot as it can be, I know that much. I know we can average in the high 40s sometimes, and then you'll find cicadas everywhere and a lot more insects. But even the fly and mosquito populations have been fairly low, I feel. So it has been quite surprising. Grey-headed bushrat calling somewhere here in the seep line. So you can imagine if you don't have a lot of insects, that actually has quite a knock-on effect, because a lot of the species of birds that we get here, and especially the migratory species, things like European bee-eaters, southern carmine bee-eaters, they feed on insects. So if you've got a lower insect population, you'll have a lower migratory bird species population, and it's a knock-on effect. It affects a lot of different things. But I have been quite surprised by the lack, well, I wouldn't say complete lack of insects, but definitely fewer insects than we're used to, fewer species than we're used to. And at the same time as well, if you're looking at the birds, we haven't seen nearly as many bee eaters and things like that. Probably the most abundant migratory species we've had is the woodland kingfisher, which we know comes in massive amounts every year. I'm seeing some elephant tracks, and again hyena tracks. Interesting. I wonder if they might be heading towards the dam. I'm hoping. Really hoping that there might be some elephants coming towards the dam. So you can see the road is quite disturbed here, but this is old buffalo tracks from that same herd that the lion's focused on. But while I carry on towards the dam, we'll head over to JP and see what he's up to.
Welcome back to Pridelands, and while Tessa is moving towards Triads Dam, we're still enjoying our elephants here at Leopard Dam. They just repositioned and went to go and drink somewhere else on the dam. We quite often find that they're quite picky about what they want to drink and where they want to drink. And they feel that the water is dirty or that it's contaminated with algae, they go and drink in the opposite corner of a dam. And quite often what we'll also notice is that they will actually go and drink from the side where the wind comes from, as often the wind direction and the wind will actually push the algae away from the edge of the water. Now it seems as if they're going to start moving off and go and have a little bit of a feed. One of them is already starting to dust bathe. Quite often what you'll notice is once they've drank, they will go and mud bath, and directly after that they will go and coat themselves with dry dust. And that is to create a protective barrier against insects as well as other parasites that might hinder them. So for the first time viewers that have joined us and you are quite curious to know what's the difference between a male as well as a female, it's actually very simple. At the moment we can see that both of these bulls have their penises hanging out, and the purpose for that is to actually control temperature by either exposing it to shade or to sun. But let's look at some of the other features which we can use to actually separate them. Firstly, we can also look at the head profile, which is generally more rounded compared to that of a very pronounced square-shaped head profile of the cows. The next thing that you can also look at is the angle of the chest towards the groin, which is quite steep compared to that of a female that has got a fairly straight angle between chest and groin. We also will notice when it does come to cows that they actually have got the teats between the front legs, which is another feature that you can actually identify them with. Unlike other animal species where there's a scrotum present in the male, we find that the scrotum or the testicles are actually internal and not external. There's a number of the species that uses for strategy, and they also include rhinos and species such as rock hyraxes, which is close relatives of elephants. They also share that one other characteristic with elephant, and that is that the teats is between the front legs. And then there's also a number of odd characteristics which they also share, which is a little bit less obvious. While we were discussing earlier on that they will often use the penis to actually manage their temperature by exposing it to sun or shade, we also can see that the animal will move in or out of the shades, or just simply to flap the ears forward and backward. Good morning, Zia. I didn't hear the question very clearly. If I can just ask FC to repeat it. There's a plane that just came over. That's one of the anti-poaching patrol planes that will check that there's no where animals are, as well as that there's no people moving into the area. When it comes to the question, is it easy for them to form bachelor herds? Yes, they do so automatically. We normally see that the similar age-related bulls when they get chucked out of the breeding herds, they will start forming small little groups or associate with older bulls. But however, it's probably down to temperament, and some individuals just simply prefer to be on their own, while others prefer to actually move in groups. However, they're one of the largest land mammals on the planet, and they can get up to 10,000 kilograms of weight, and they don't have a lot of enemies. They still prefer to have safety in numbers, especially the older bulls. They use younger ones almost like a shield around them. And some of the things that I also do find particularly interesting about older bulls is that they will often use younger bulls when they want to break out of the conservation areas and go and feed somewhere else. Simply what these more mature and older bulls will do, they herd them into electric fences and let the younger bulls take the shock and then simply walk out after the fence has been broken. And meanwhile, let's go and see what Lauren is up to.
I'm just scratching around, but I did get an update that Tess thinks there's a den site near Treehouse Dam, but a den site for what? I'm just going to get my director to clarify. FC. Okay, I don't think I'm going to get the answer to this question. I have asked multiple times, but the reason I asked, because if it's leopard tracks, there is a den at Treehouse Dam that Tandy used with Medibs. I don't know if I'm live or not, everyone. I'm getting a little bit of confusing messages. Okay, apparently I am live. Leopard den site, right, that's the reason I'm asking. There is a den site there that Tandy used with Medibs multiple times, and I think it's the same one Karula also used. I don't know how to explain it to Tessa though. It's quite tricky. Den sites are not really... they're tricky places to navigate. Of course they are, because they've got to protect the cubs. But I don't really know how to explain it to her, I'm afraid. But there is one there. I didn't know if it was hyena. I was thinking maybe it's Corky, and then I thought, oh, if it's leopard, then maybe Kalamba's using that particular site, because they do. They do reuse sites that they were in when they were younger. Interesting. I also saw leopard tracks go north on this road. And this is Guaripan area, so I don't know whether maybe she took them to a kill. She is leading them to kill sites. She's taking them far and wide, bringing them back. I'm really not sure. She's taking quite predictable routes, Tlalamba. Even though we're not finding her, we are seeing her tracks. And that's of course because she's sticking to where she knows it's safe. Tlalamba knows this area. She knows where the threats are. She knows who the enemies are. But maybe I can check that den site this afternoon. Okay, so I'm going to continue scratching around here, and you never know what else we might find.
I am just about to arrive at Treehouse Dam, and we've been looking for all things big and small at the moment. And We do seem to be seeing a few more flower species. Africa wild violets, red star zinnias, St. Bernard's lily. So we'll try and get a nice view of a few of them for you. This is also, it's a road called Taxon's Road, so it's where we think there might be some hyenas active in the area. Excuse me, allergies. So we have been seeing a lot of hyena activity around, and traditionally this area has been very good for hyena dens in the past. I should say historically, not traditionally. So it is a good place to check. But we're just about to arrive at the dam, and I'm not sure what we're going to find. I think our blacksmith lapwings should be there. Maybe the resident pair of Egyptian geese as well. We'll see if there are any mammals around. It is starting to heat up nicely, which means the animals should be starting to move towards watering holes for the morning, especially those water dependent ones, buffaloes, elephants, those kinds of animals, even impalas. Alright, let us see what we have got coming up to the dam wall. No fresh tracks in the area. Oh, the hippo's back. Oh my goodness, yay. That makes me happy. And some warthogs just fleeting away very far in the distance. You see it, Owen, right at the back, looking at us under the bush there. Just one warthog, the other one has run off. One still standing, staring at us.
We have come across piping hot fresh female leopardjacks right at Gory Pan again. So I'm naturally going to assume that it's Tlalamba. It could be another leopardess, but in this area it's Tlalamba. It doesn't look like she continues on, and it doesn't look like she picks up the cubs. But they're fresh, and I know they're fresh because I drove this road yesterday. Okay, I'm actually going to see where they go, but I do also want to check the den side. So she still is utilizing this area, but where the cubs are, well, that's another question.
Anyone from Cheetah Plains, copy?
Jesse, you're asking, I think. Is it easy to tell if a track is old? Not always, no, not always. But because we have been working the area for Tlalamba, we have been specifically looking for, I spent about 10 days tracking that cat. And sorry, I'm getting very distracted by the tracks. I do know that they are fresh. Tessa drove that road yesterday and so did I. So once you start driving a road every day, it can get a bit repetitive, and I like to say it's getting stuck in a loop. You literally, we are on Gory Pan loop. Because you check in constantly, but that's how I ended up finding Tlalamba and cubs, because I knew that I drove that road the night before quite late, and I knew that these tracks had to be between that window of time, and that's how we ended up finding her. So these ones definitely are fresh, but it can be tricky sometimes. Say you've not driven a road in a really long time and maybe the weather's been perfect. Tracks can look fresher than they actually are. But when you've got wind and rain and all sorts, then it messes the tracks up pretty quickly, and you know it's not piping hot and fresh. But really, it for me, it comes down to knowledge as well. Soft sand, you're going to have that crisp edge. Imagine if you put your hand on soft sand, get a crisp edge around the sort of handprint. That's also what you're looking for. So it depends on weather, knowledge of the roads, and terrain. And of course it might not be Kalamba, but she's definitely the one leopardess working this part of the reserve. Do you see them? Please don't tell me they're going to touch it. Tandy definitely wasn't on Torchwood, so that's another reason I'm thinking it's Kalamba. Yeah, they go into Torchwood. Fabulous. I'm joking. But the cub tracks are not there, so she's probably just on territorial patrol or hunting. But anyway, I'm just going to go back and quickly scratch around, and we're going to send you guys over to JP.
Welcome back to Pridelands. We're busy looking at another elephant bull that's busy feeding. So what we did is we positioned our vehicle into the direction of where they were moving, and automatically they became a little bit more curious and came closer to look at what we were doing. They're incredibly relaxed with our presence, and that's why we're quite happy to view them from close by. We're just busy watching them feeding at the moment. It's quite interesting to see how they actually use the trunk and then shove the food into the mouth. What we also quite often will notice is when they feed on plants with a large amount of thorns or spines, that they will actually break off a branch and then pull it underneath the foot by pulling the branch with the trunk out underneath the foot, and then only put that into the mouth. When it does come to elephants, they eat quite a wide range of different plant materials. In some areas, they've been recorded to almost feed on 150 different plant species. We'll notice that they almost will take anything from grasses, and when it comes to trees, which they also feed on quite often, anything from fruits, seed pods, the roots. And what they also quite often do is use their tusks to strip off the outer bark so that they can get to the inner bark, where there's a large amount of nutrients. The outer bark, on the other hand, that's pretty much dead, and it only forms a protective layer for the tree to protect it against dehydration, as well as insect infestation. We also often see with the knob fawn, which it just was eating on, that it's one of the first trees that elephants will often target, as it's the first ones to start flowering. And last year, they were starting to flower as early as in the last week of May and in the first weeks of June. And when these plants start pushing up the nutrients into the tree from the roots so that they can start producing a flower, that's specifically when the elephants start utilizing the inner bark. We sometimes find that they will also entirely strip the whole circumference of a bark, which will lead to the tree will actually eventually die. As you can see, there's a lot of broken branches on the knob fawn in front of us as well. This is all damage that's been created by elephant feeding there. And quite often they do kill off trees. But there's reasoning behind that, and for them is to create a balance between the grasses as well as between the trees. And at this time of the year, you'll notice that most elephants will mostly feed on grass, which has a much higher nutritional value for them at this time of the year compared to in the winter months when it goes yellow and becomes lignified. As an elephant, you can also not be picky about what you eat, as that you have to have quite a large amount of food that you have to consume on a daily basis to support your body. And for these guys, they possibly eat close by to 300 or just over 300 kilograms of food on average. With the cows, it's slightly less. But what we do find is that their digestive tract or system is very inefficient, and they can only absorb some 40% of what they eat. And this time of year, when the marulas start ripening at the end of this month and early in February, you'll often see them starting to break down these trees. And because of the digestive system being so inefficient, these fruits often pass whole through the stomach of the elephant. But it does help to assist quite often with a number of different seeds to help them to actually germinate, as well as to spread the seeds. Good morning, Ria, and welcome to the show. Yes, I assume that there is some plants that they don't like, and I've actually never observed them feeding on euphorbias, which is incredibly toxic plants. However, on the opposite side, we do find that black rhinos will often feed on those. Although incredibly toxic, they gain most of their moisture requirements out of those plants in very arid environments, and they reckon that they can gain up to some 50% of their moisture requirements. Good morning, Becca, and thank you very much. Yes, it's absolutely a lovely scene, and I just love watching elephants. Other than the wild dogs that I mentioned yesterday, which is one of my favorite animals to go and view, I do love watching elephants because they're always doing something. And quite often when it does come to elephants, we find that they're incredibly intelligent animals, and they find ways and means to do certain tasks, and they learn very quickly to adapt to environments, and that's those interesting behaviors that I like to observe. As our elephant is moving away, let's go and see what Tessa is up to.
Oh, elephants. That sounds like the perfect thing to come down to Treehouse Dam this morning. At the moment, we've got a lot of birds calling, our resident blacksmith lapwings, and a hippo which seems to be hiding. It is warming up very quickly, so now that the sun is very far away from the clouds, we can feel it heating up while we're sitting here. So I'm hoping that means that we might see a few birds dipping in and out, a few insects flying over, and maybe even this lapwing will get up and start feeding just now. So it is sitting fairly close to where the old nest used to be, so I'm not sure if they have a new one or not. It is the first time that I've seen one sitting for quite a while in that position. The other one is busy foraging at the moment. But since they are the resident nesting pair, it might be that maybe they're getting ready for a new nest. So the other one is actually coming back down to the bank now. It's been moving through the grass looking for insects. And slowly edging closer to the waterline. I can tell you the hippo's doing very well this morning with holding his breath. And I think this is the same male hippo that's been moving between twin dams in here, but I could be wrong. We haven't had a very good view of it. And it would make sense that it might be the same one. We often see his tracks going along the link roads from here towards twin dams. So I'm hoping to hear some sounds of breaking branches or any signs that there might be elephants. There were quite a few tracks coming from Impala Plains area towards the dam, but they may have come through earlier this morning while we were still with the lions perhaps, and moved off already. Although I can't see any areas where the bank has been splashed a bit more than usual. I'm actually starting to hear a few insects now as well. It has been quite strange. We've noticed in the last few days that the red-billed buffalo weavers haven't been as active as they normally are. So the nest stays in the same place, colony nest. I've heard them once or twice in the last few days, but we haven't actually seen many of them actively going into and out of the nest or even adding to it, building on it. But maybe they might still be out looking for some food or resting. Hannah, it actually depends on the specific lapwing species. So blacksmith lapwings in particular, you'll mostly find around the fringes of water, and that's because their diet consists mostly of aquatic invertebrates and insects, so waterborne insects and invertebrates. If you compare that to something like a Senegal lapwing, they're actually found more in open, sandy, and small grassy areas. And that's because they would then feed more on land-based insects, terrestrial insects and invertebrates. So it depends on the species. We do see blacksmith lapwings a lot more than we see crowned and Senegal lapwings, and that's just because they are more noticeable in the areas where they are. It's much more difficult to spot a crowned lapwing or a Senegal lapwing in long grass than it is to spot a blacksmith lapwing on the open banks of a dam. So it actually just depends on the species. That being said, I have seen, especially places like Chitwa, you'll find quite a few crowned lapwings because it's a much bigger area, and on the sides of the waterhole there are quite big open grassy areas, where here it's actually quite dense. So it would just depend on where you are and which species you're looking at. But for a blacksmith lapwing, most of the food that they eat is aquatic, so they would need the water close by. It's also why they have different colorations. So the blacksmith lapwing more black and white and grey, and crowned and Senegal lapwings are much more dusty brown to blend in with the grass and the soil. You can actually see it kind of starting to wake up a little bit and preen. It is quite a calm day. There is no breeze at all, just about. So the surface of the water is quite smooth, but every time the hippo comes up and down, it's making little ripples, so you can see a bit of tension on the surface of the water. We're going to stick around for a few more minutes and see if anything else decides to come down as it's getting hotter.
We're almost approaching a dam, and it's getting warmer and the sun is up. It's hot. It's always just worth checking a dam. You never know what you're going to get around a water body. In summer, the action, the sort of intensity around a dam lessens quite a lot because water is everywhere. There are little puddles and pans everywhere. Even the vegetation is so rich in moisture that most of the herbivores can actually survive just on eating the vegetation alone to meet their hydration requirements. Now they do also drink water because it's hot. But still, water bodies are a good place to check. And that's where we're headed. Going to pop up on the dam wall and scan around, take a moment, see what's moving. Not much, I must say. You do have a resident hippo. I love it when you first arrive and all the dragonflies come to check you out. One day they're going to land on me. But that day is not today. I'm not sure if you can see all the dragonflies. I don't know, it's very difficult for the cameraman. But what happens is they all... I'm going to actually jump out for this and do a little demonstration. I won't have comms for the next 2 seconds, but I'm going to show you. When you arrive, we're obviously a vehicle, but look at them all. And they're probably going to swarm to my feet. See them all coming? Because generally, they... I thought that was a leopard track. I'm stirring up the ground. Now, this is just sand, but if I was to walk through the vegetation, I'm flushing out the vegetation just like an elephant would, just like a buffalo would. And that can flush out lots of different insects and flies and mosquitoes. And that's what they're wanting, and that's why they swarm your feet. Very curious. They're everywhere. Come on, friends. Look at them all landing down to see what it is. And the most amazing thing about dragonflies is how they catch their food. They catch it in mid-air. So they're waiting for me to flush out anything, and they'll use all 6 legs like a basket. So they'll just like whoop, and catch their food like a basket. But obviously I've only got 2 arms. I don't really know how to demonstrate that. And then that's them got their food. They'll keep it tight in the basket and then use their mouth to eat it. And that is remarkable. Remarkable hunting skills for an insect. And that's why all the dragonflies come to you. I like to think that they're my friend, but sadly not. I'm going to jump back in comms and then show you something in my book. This book's actually really wonderful. Now, it's just got so many nice diagrams. Let's start with this one. So you can see they are epic hunters on their own. I mean, this dragonfly has actually got a moth. And it will have caught it. That moth won't be dead. They want fresh food. But then if you go down to the bottom here, you'll see that dragonflies also become the perfect prey. If you look on the left, you can see that that's been caught by a white-fronted bee-eater. And then if you look on the right, you can see it's been caught by a golden orb-web spider, which I have yet to see. So they're amazing predators, but they also make the perfect prey. Large bodies, lots of protein. And then I just wanted to show you something else up here, because this is utterly fascinating. When we think of parasites, we generally think of ticks that sit on us. We don't think of ticks that sit on reptiles or elephants. We also don't think about little parasitic mites that actually parasitize on insects. So this poor dragonfly here is a skimmer, has got a really nasty load. I mean, that's a lot of parasitic mites on his softer parts. So somehow these mites have managed to get in between the exoskeleton to softer parts. And I just wanted to show you that because it's really fascinating that insects can also be parasitized as well. It's not just humans or mammals, shall we say. There's a nice little dragonfly demonstration for you all. I need to work on my basket technique though. But still, it's like they're catching a basketball, and it's just amazing hunting technique to catch aerial insects as you are also in flight. Yeah, they're just the same as any parasite. So they're leeching from their host. And I don't know about this specific parasitic mite. I don't know if they actually kill. Not all parasites kill their host. Some do. I mean, parasites for us can also transmit diseases which will kill us, but that's not directly, that's indirectly. And then if you think of ticks, once they drink a little bit of blood, they just drop off you. They're not actually trying to kill you, they're just trying to steal your blood because it's so delicious. But then you get parasites like the isopod that will actually latch onto fishes underwater and get inside their mouth because they open their mouth and grow. And as they grow, they feed on the fish's tongue. Till eventually the tongue is gone and they replace the tongue. So when that fish opens its mouth, it doesn't have a tongue, it has a isopod, and it's actually really disturbing if you Google it. It's not a nice thing to think about. But of course, the isopod is not a tongue. So therefore, the fish will eventually die. It's killed the host. It was a long process, and it was, I imagine, probably quite painful. But it's killed its host in the process because they can no longer feed because they no longer have a tongue. But not all parasites will. And I don't know about this one. It's just an image showing you that they can get parasites. They fall victim to predators and parasites. I'm actually just reading this now. So, Odonata, which is your dragonflies and your damselflies, are also host to a range of parasitic mites, especially a group known as water mites in the family Araneuridae. Araneuridae. Why does it have to be so complicated? Araneuridae. These mites attach themselves. Yep, we went through that. Oh, they attach themselves quite early. Once the dragonfly just comes out of the water, because they have a juvenile aquatic phase. So once they just emerge from the water, that's when they latch on to the dragonfly. Mostly the thorax. That's all it really says, I'm afraid, Kelly. It doesn't say, oh, we got a friend. Why don't you land on me like that? One day. But yes, it doesn't say whether it kills them or not. It really depends on the type of parasite. But I imagine a high tick load on an aerial dragonfly like that would eventually be detrimental to their health and would probably kill them, whether it's directly or indirectly. Because if you think, mites are also heavy with an exoskeleton, and if you've got a really heavy mite load, I said tick there, sorry, mite load, it's going to weigh that dragonfly down. It's probably going to weaken them, compromise them on some level. I love it when they land on the car. I don't know why. Why do I like it? I think this could possibly be the female southern banded groundling. But I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, what a wonderful stop to Buffelshoek Dam. We are going to continue and see what else we can find.
So it seems the last few minutes the hippo has had his head out of the water and he's just slowly rotating as he's relaxing under the cool surface. And then he pops down for a few minutes and comes back up. It looks like he's trying to gather some information, maybe because we've been sitting here for a while. And just checking to see what is going on and whether or not we're a threat. He is looking nice and relaxed though. But while we're sitting here, we have noticed a lot of different birds calling. We've seen quite a few flying over as well, and I think it would be lovely to just appreciate some of the calls around the dam this morning, because there are so many that are still calling. Let's have a listen. So if you listen carefully, you'll hear woodland kingfishers, black-crowned chagras, birchall starlings. I can hear a cisticola somewhere in the distance as well, and a lot of different dove species. But it just seems to be quite alive this morning with birds in particular. Because it's not too hot yet, they're actually still quite active, so I've been very impressed by the amount of different bird calls we're hearing, but also the flits of movement from tree to tree. There do seem to be quite a lot of birds that are moving around close to the waterhole, probably looking for insects, for some food. Beautiful scene this morning. So I am hoping that the hippo pops his head out again. He has been coming up every few minutes just to check. He came a little bit closer as well. after he had those oxpeckers perched on his head just now. But other than the hippo, it seems to be majority a birding morning here at Treehouse Dam specifically. There's a lot of insects flying around, so there's a lot of bird life as well. Lots of birds still calling and lots of movement of them flying over, especially a lot of Burchell starlings today. So I do have a feeling that as today gets hotter, because we are expecting it to get very hot over lunchtime, close to the 30s in Celsius, I think this dam will probably become more and more popular as the morning goes on, not just with the hippo up and down, but I'm sure impalas, elephants, all sorts of animals will be coming down to quench their thirst on such a hot day. I'm really hoping that in the next kind of few days I do get to see some elephants enjoying the water, swimming maybe, or having a bit of a splash. Nothing quite as exciting as watching elephants come down to a dam. They have a swagger when they walk down towards a water source. Oh, hello hippo, I see nostrils and they're gone. So as it's heating up, the hippo is actually going to become less and less active and will only really come up to get some air. Haley, you wouldn't say it from looking at a hippo, but a hippo actually only eats grass. It's a grazer. And because they've got such sensitive skin and they're so prone to dehydration, he actually can't come out of the water during the day unless it's a coolish day to feed. And so you'll find hippos out of the water at night grazing on grasses. They actually don't eat nearly as much as you'd expect because they live in the water and they don't use an awful lot of energy. This hippo has a very, very efficient digestive system compared to all of the other grazers that we know of, things like rhinos and buffaloes. Much more efficient digestive system. So where a big rhino would have to eat many kilograms of grass in a day, a hippo averages around 13 kilograms of grass because they can digest it a lot easier. They've also got quite a unique digestive system. They're not quite the same as other ruminants that would have a 4-chambered stomach. They've actually got a 3-chambered stomach. So there's fermentation that happens in the foregut as opposed to the hindgut. Very efficient. Ah, they're marula fruits. Thank you, Owen. So this is exactly why we see so many elephants around this time of the year, especially elephant bulls. They'll spend a lot of their time very close to marula trees, not only for shade, but for those beautiful green fruits that you can see. They aren't quite ripe yet. They haven't started turning different colors and falling out of the tree. We have seen a few on the floor here and there. They're still quite hard though. You want them ideally to turn to a yellow-orange color, and then they'll be nice and sweet and fairly soft and fleshy as well. What is surprising about marula fruits is majority or the bulk of what you can see, the bulk of that volume is actually made up from the kind of hard center, what we would call the pip in South Africa. It contains 2 nuts and the seeds. And then a little bit of flesh around the outside, and then that hard green covering. It's actually quite a leathery covering, quite hard to bite through. But you can imagine for elephants with such large teeth, they can grind through that outer layer quite easily. That being said, their digestive system is not quite as good as a hippo's, and so often you'll see in big piles of elephant dung this time of the year, we'll see lots of whole marula fruits that are completely untouched, that have come out in the elephant's dung. But very important food source, even for things like baboons. They are also big fans of marula fruits. Also very, very useful for people. You can make beers, wines, spirits, jams, all sorts of things from marula fruits. And the oils are actually also very good for you. The oils that come out of the little seeds are very good for you. Very diverse species. But altogether, I think it's quite a peaceful morning to be sitting at a dam. Hello, hippo. He's actually kind of turned more towards us. He's come a little bit closer, just a few meters. And when he comes up, he tends to look over to us just to see what we're doing. Because remember, this is a territorial male. We are in his territory. We're not in the water. We're higher up on the dam wall. But it is still his territory, and he does want to make sure of what's happening around him. So it is expected that he will check on us every few minutes to make sure of what we're doing. I think if I could find a nice shady spot, I would spend the whole day sitting between Chitwa Dam and Treehouse Dam. I'd spend the whole day sitting and watching what comes past the waterhole. It's especially good today because we've had 3 days of strange weather where we've had a little bit of spitting rain. We've had quite a lot of cloud cover coming in and out. Today is probably the clearest morning we've had in 4 days since I got here. And it's already much hotter this early in the morning. So that is a great way to know that it's a good day to spend at a watering hole. Any clear sky day means you're going to get a lot more insects and birds, but also a lot more animals coming to the water. What can you see, Owen? Oh, woodland kingfisher. The sun is a bit bright, so I can't really see my monitor. But you can actually hear a lot of woodland kingfishers calling, and it's one of the most brilliant colors that you will see, especially around a waterhole, is that neon blue of the woodland kingfisher. There's actually probably about 10 different woodland kingfishers calling at the moment from all around us, every direction. And believe it or not, that kingfisher is actually not here specifically to catch fish. It's here more likely to get some water and have a dip in the dam as it gets hotter, but also there'll be a lot more insects flying over this area. And a woodland kingfisher in particular focuses more on insects like grasshoppers than it does on fish and tadpoles. So when you see them near to the water, it's normally either a nesting site or looking for a little bit of water to dip in, and then insects on the fringe. Have a listen to all of the birds calling around us. It's definitely a morning full of bird life today. Very many different bird calls happening at the moment, and it's so nice to be able to sit here and point out the different ones and listen in case there is anything unusual. I think I'm actually going to leave the dam. I'm going to go on a bit of a bumble and see what else I can find now that it's heating up a bit. We are getting a bit too hot in the sun. But we'll head over to Lauren in the meantime, who's on a bumble of her own.
I have arrived at Gowrie Dam. And I'm just going to pull up in the shade. Oh, look at that little squirrel again. There's a squirrel that seems to be living in the dead knob thorn and has disappeared. Along with all the monitor lizards. We've got the goslings here. You see them. I wonder how many we have. Hopefully still 7. I try to avoid talking too much about Egyptian geese. That's for dam cam segments. But when they've got goslings, it's adorable. Fiercely protective parents. It's nice to just sit and watch them for a while. Wading through the water, not a care in the world. didn't get that FC. Jonah, you're saying the babies are so... Okay, the babies are so chunky. That's what I've been told. The comment is. But yes, they are. They're getting fat and fluffy and big and awkward, and they're really, really growing up. They're no longer these sort of tiny, waddling little balls of feathers. They're really getting big. That's very cute to see. Has anyone done a count? 7. Remarkable. Well done, Mummy and Daddy. And I'm not being sarcastic. Really, the mortality rate is high because they are sort of, especially when they're younger, they're weak and they can get left behind, they can get lost, and they also really can't escape predators when they're small. And that's why Mum and Dad stay very close by. And Mum and Dad's best call of defense is their voice. My goodness, the waterhole I sat at, Madikwe, the Egyptian goose mother, called all night long. She would quieten down and we would think, okay, we can sleep now. And then a jackal would arrive. And she doesn't stop. She does not stop until that jackal is completely out of sight. And then she quietens down. And then a brown hyena comes. And it really deters the predators. A lioness arrived one night. My goodness. She had a meltdown. Their best method of defense is their voice. It's been such a wonderful drive. Sometimes it's nice to just sit and reflect on it. We saw a ribbon. We had a communal den sighting that I've been waiting for. We've had lions, elephants, tracks, quiet dam moments. What more could one want? Okay, I think we're going to just sit at this dam in the shade a little while longer and see what else comes by.
Welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. We took a short little drive and see what we could go and find. Managed to find some tracks as well as fresh dung from buffalo that moved through the area. We had a brief visual on them, but unfortunately they went into an area where we could no longer follow up. And as it's heating up, we also noticed that there was a number of giraffe that was slowly moving into the direction of the dam, and we're just waiting for them to arrive. That's one of the biggest journeys that I've actually seen at Pridelands, and it consists probably of approximately 18 different giraffe. But In the meanwhile, we're just going to do a short silence segment and allow you to listen to the different sounds of nature. You might hear some chirping of insects as well as a number of different birds that are calling in the background.
I've just arrived back up on quarantine, having left Treehouse Dam with our resident hippo. And I was really hoping that I would find some elephants today. And lo and behold, there are some elephant bulls on quarantine. It makes me so happy. That will do. Pull off into the shade, and we've got an elephant bull underneath a marula tree, and I'm sure he is looking for some marula fruits while he's relaxing in the shade this morning. Got a herd of impalas that he's about to intermingle with. Wow, have a look at that size difference. The impala takes him just up to his knees. And it looks like they've all got the same idea. There's some shade coming from a very big marula tree. And I think that's where they're going, but I might have to reposition. There is another bull coming from a distance, looks like following. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the small bachelor herd that we often see around camp. He is coming at speed. It's almost as though he smelt water, but I think he's actually just following the older bull. He's a little bit smaller in body size than the first bull. He's on quite a mission. It's not stopping for anything. You can see the ears are out, so feeling a little bit possibly unrelaxed at this point. I wouldn't... Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to move us a little bit forward. We've got an elephant breaking branches out of a marula tree here. Position so we can see both. The grass is quite long, but you can see him. He's just broken a branch straight out of that marula tree. And it looks like the younger male is just coming to join him. So he's down a bit of a slope, which is why the impalas look so big compared to him. He's further behind and down a slope. But by breaking off those end branches, I'm sure he's hoping to find some of those marula fruits and some of the more juicy vegetation. Very quiet. Can't hear the other bull moving at all. I wonder what the interaction is going to be like as the younger bull approaches him. They must know each other because they're already so close together and tolerating each other. And possibly the younger bull, you can see he's got his trunk up, he's busy smelling, he's busy assessing what's happening. The younger bull's probably been following the bigger bull around for a bit of company, but also a bit of life experience lessons. He knows better than to try and feed off of the same branch as the older bull. So you'll probably find he'll come and look for some of the fallen marula fruits on the road or in the grass, because he's not as tall, he won't be able to reach up to those branches and break them down. He is also looking a little bit more unrelaxed. He approached with his ears out, he's been sniffing the air. And we're not that far from where the lions have been moving. So possibly they can smell the lions or even the increased hyena activity in the area. Just making him a little bit more on edge. So I would actually say this bull is about to come into the start of his prime. He's quite a big-bodied bull. He doesn't have massive tusks, but from the size of him, I'd say he's at least 25 to 30 years old, somewhere there. He doesn't have massive tusks in terms of fighting. He's actually broken one, it looks like. One is much shorter than the other, but he is very big in body size. And so he'll be at the age now where he's moving around following the herds of females and youngsters. And if there's a female coming into estrus, he'll start pushing his way in and fighting off some of the other bulls. At the moment, the main concern, though, for most male elephants in particular, is moving from marula to marula. So it seems to be something that they like doing now that all the marula fruits are around. Very, very good food intake for them. I'm going to reposition a little bit, see.
Okay, everyone, this squirrel that I was talking about, you will not believe what just happened. She pulled out a baby from that hole. A teeny, teeny, tiny baby. And took it to another spot. I think she's going back for more. Hold on, let's just watch her. I've never seen that before, guys. And when I say tiny baby, I mean absolutely tiny baby. And this is so funny because I've been watching the squirrel and I didn't realize she was nesting in this dead knobthorn. The baby's gone. She took the baby across the road, but it's tiny. It's the smallest baby squirrel I've ever seen. And then she went back to the hole. So we thought she was going to pull one out, but maybe it was just one. I've got photos, I'll be able to share it with you, but I just want to give it a little bit longer in case she pulls another baby out. And she sort of held it in her mouth, and I thought it was a massive marula nut at first. And then I zoomed in and I realized it's a tiny little baby squirrel. I can't believe she would nest on that dead knobthorn with all of these monitor lizards around. I mean, this is monitor lizard central. I don't know if she's gonna go back now. It's just strange she went to that exact same hole again as if to get more babies. And I saw her here yesterday. I did a live segment with her. I didn't realize that she was nesting there. And there's a monitor lizard in the background swimming. Do you see that? Right on cue. Rock and monitor lizard, water monitor would definitely go for a tiny, tiny baby squirrel. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe she's not going for another one. either way, that's very cool to know that a squirrel nests in that branch. And just to give you an indication, it is right here inside that branch. There's a hole somewhere. It's not so easy for us to see, but that's where she pulled the teeny tiny baby out of. Okay, I don't know if there are any more, but we are just going to sit and be patient and hope that she brings out another baby.
And he's got a pretty...
Pants on for a moment or two. I really hope Mama Squirrel comes back. It's an iconic tree, this one. This dead knobthorn is fallen over. It's what I use to monitor, not monitor, but gauge, water levels. And obviously it's not a very accurate gauge, but it's how I sort of know if the water levels are rising or falling. And it's filled with life. Normally monitor lizards, I can't see any right now, but this is normally where they sunbathe to catch the morning rays. But we are hoping Mama Squirrel comes back, so we're just going to sit here for a moment or two and just watch and listen. I don't think Mama Squirrel is coming, but we are going to sit here and just continue to enjoy the scene around the dam.
So we're still sitting with this big elephant bull. He is enjoying the shade under the marula tree, but he's actually managed to strip that branch entirely bare. It was quite a big branch, and he's made very quick work of it. He's even broken the branch into smaller pieces and chewed some of the bark off. But he is quite a big bull. We were having a look at the size of his remaining intact tusk, and it's quite thick. And I think that if he had the genes for long tusks, he would be a very, very impressive bull in terms of tusk size. But his body size and the width of the tusk really does show us that he's quite a majestic boy. You can also have a look, as Owen is zooming out, you'll see the size of his head. He's got a very broad and muscular forehead. And that also says volumes about an elephant in terms of age in particular and how big he's going to be. You can actually hear the branch cracking there as he's breaking smaller pieces off again. So the tusk on the other side, we did have a look. You can see it looks bare from here, but there is a small little fragment of tusk sticking out, and it's broken quite close to the lip, which must be fairly uncomfortable if you think about it. It's a functioning tooth, and he's broken it fairly close to the root, probably either feeding, trying to get the bark off of a tree, or possibly in a fight with another male. It's actually also looking a little bit differently angled to the other tusk. It looks like it would have gone straight down and almost backwards, so maybe that's why it broke. It wasn't quite the same shape as a normal tusk would be, forwards and upwards. It looks like it goes down and backwards. But that could have also been from the damage during the break itself. So he looks like he's following the younger bull now. He is moving across. And I might have to reposition a little bit. Yes, I think I'm going to have to. Poor Owen is turning all the way around here. He's almost sitting on the seat. And let's see how it goes. Yeah, he is following the other bull. They're actually walking in the direction of Tumbeta House and possibly towards Gowrie Dam a little bit later as it gets hotter. He does look like he has a few secretions on the side of his head, but I don't see any dribbling coming from his penile sheath or anything. I can't smell him, so it could just be that he's hot and maybe starting to come into his must. Quite beautiful watching him walk off in the distance, especially after the open clearing like that. It really does show his size, and you can imagine on a day like today, he's going to struggle to keep himself cool. Beanie, I'm so happy that you enjoyed the drive today. I think it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm speaking for all three of us, saying we've loved having you with us this morning, and it's been such an entertaining morning, big and small things coming out. And it's a great way to end the show, watching him walk off into the distance towards the marula trees. Please join us again this afternoon. We're really looking forward to having you with us and sharing the magic of the African bush with you as we bumble around, hopefully finding you as good things, if not better, than this morning. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful day.